Lift up your heart and praise. Lift up your hands and praise. Lift up your voice and praise.
All right, Sukkot, everybody. Are we having an amazing time at Tabernacles 2019? Oh yeah. So, how many people with a show of hands has had good food this time? Yeah? Check? Okay. Well, anybody that's had good food, I want to make sure that y'all go over and y'all tell Jenny and y'all tell Bethany thank you. Plus, all the other people that went along and helped cook along the way. I mean, like, we really had some good food this time. What about this? Has the camp stayed pretty clean and well organized? Can I get a show of hands? All right. Y'all make sure y'all thank Candace and thank Kathy for that, along with all the other people that have braved the men and women's restrooms to go in there and make sure that those things stay clean, because some days that's not a task. I mean, that is a task. I mean, and we've had some good cleaners in there. All right, what about this? Kids. Seth, Ariel, has Sukkot school been fun? Yes. Did you have a good time with that? What about you, Liana? Did you have a good time at Sukkot school? Ransom? Did you have a good time at Sukkot school? Yeah, well, I want to make sure that y'all tell Miss Debbie and that y'all tell Miss Nancy thank you for that, because they did a really good job, didn't they? All right. Who has had a great time with all the events that we've had? Woo! Y'all, this has been like the best event tabernacle we've ever had. I mean, we've had shooting tournaments. We've had field days. We've had crafts. We've had Tales by the Fire. Which, by the way, when Chris gets up there and stands in front of everybody, he gets this rather Southern Alabama type drawl whenever he's up there, which I thought was awesome. He's from Illinois, so he was from Southern Illinois, so he's good. Indiana, that's right. Sorry. Y'all know what? We even had a Sure Enough You Betcha drive-in movie. Was that not cool? That was really, really great. So if everybody had a good time with that, well, everybody tell Chris thank you. Because I mean, flat out. Give him a round of applause. Woo! That guy never ceases to amaze me, man. He never does. All right, so with all that being said, who all loves Sukkot this year? Woo! Get loud and proud. I mean, because flat out, y'all, I have loved Sukkot this year. And truthfully, love is what we're going to be talking about today. So, if y'all will, go ahead and turn over to Matthew 22 for me. And I'm going to help y'all out. Well, I'm going to help the 98 people out, because that's what I have. It's going to be on page 944. 22. We're going to read about love. Now, y'all may not be realizing that it's all about love, but the title of the message today is The Great Command. All right, we're going to be in Matthew 22, and we're going to read 36 through 40. I should have got 35 on there to get this. So somebody came to Yahshua and he said, "Teacher, which is the great command in the Torah?" And Yahshua said to him, "You shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your mind." Let's read that again. Yahshua said, you shall what? Love Yahweh with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. This is the first and great command. And the second is like to it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the prophets. Now, have you ever thought about that love was the great commands that he was sitting there saying that you should do? Have you ever thought about that before? Well, I was curious, what does this word here, love, mean? And so it's in Matthew, so we have to go to the Greek lexicon, and I checked that out. And I hope I can say this right, because I don't speak Greek very well. I can say things like euro, and I'm not even sure if that's Greek, but that's close enough. So the word there was G25, and it says agapo, which I've heard agape before, but this one is agapo, which is its root word. And it means to love. And I was like, well, that doesn't help me out a whole lot. But it says compared to Hebrew 5, 6, 8, 9. Let me scroll my computer down so we can see that. That word is agab. And this one means a little bit different. It's a primitive word. It means to breathe after. Breathe after. So that must be a very deep longing if you have to breathe after. It also means to dote. What does dote mean? Who do you dote on? Kids, husbands, wives, people that you love, right? So let's read that again up there with, and Yahshua said to him, you shall dote after Yahweh. You shall breathe after Yahweh. You shall love after Yahweh with everything you got. The same thing with your neighbor. Does that make that a different context? Yeah? Okay. Well, let me ask you something. How many of you want to be loved? You want to be loved? Okay. I wasn't quite sure what want necessarily means. And I wasn't sure if that really said what it feels like to need love or to want love. And so I went and looked it up. We went to Merriam-Webster's online, and it said to be needy or destitute. And I was like, huh? That didn't get it for me. To have or feel need. And I was like, well, that's want. Maybe the question there is, do I need something? Do I want something? What's going on with that? I got all the way down to 2a, and it says to have a strong desire for. So do we have a strong desire for love? I don't think that's just the case. I don't think it's just a strong desire for. Do we want love or do we need love? That's a good question. So then my next thing was, well, let's go check out what need means. And so need means a necessary duty. I'm like, I don't get it. But so 1a and 2a didn't really do it for me. But 2b is very interesting. By the way, this is on Merriam-Webster's dictionary. To need, a physiological or a psychological requirement for an organism's well-being. Let's read that again. A psychological or a physiological, do y'all know what the difference between psychological and physiological is? So physiological is your body's mechanisms on the inside. Psychological has to do with the things that go on in your brain. So there are physiological things that happen in your brain, but physiological are the things that Yahweh designed to go on inside of us. So this is not just, I think I need it. My body actually needs it. So, do we want love or do we need love? Huh. That's interesting, isn't it? All right. So, the normal progression of things then, if we're going to talk about love and the need of love, is to go see what Paul wrote about it in the chapter that everybody calls the love chapter. So let's go flip over to 1 Corinthians. That's going to be in chapter 13, and we're going to read the whole chapter. That's a long one, isn't it? No, it's not long. It's going to be on page 1112 in the ISR 98. I'm not going to say that anymore because that's just the one I got. So if y'all got 98, awesome. If you don't, I'm sorry. That was just the one I had. So we're going to be on 1 Corinthians 1. By the way, in this section where it says love, it is using that same word agapo, and then sometimes goes over to its variant, which is agape. So very similar meanings. Okay. If I speak with the tongues of men, this is verse 1, if I speak with the tongues of men and messengers, but I do not have love, I have become as a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. With the knowledge that love, or that a need for love is a physiological or psychological requirement for an organism's well-being, can you understand why Paul may have wrote something along those lines now? All right, so if you hear a big clashing cymbal right next to your head, what do? Does it hurt? Can being without love hurt? Yeah, I bet. All right. Verse 2. And if I have prophecy and have known all secrets and all knowledge, and if I have all belief so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am none at all. And if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I give my body to be burned, but do not have love, I am not profited at all. Love is patient. It's kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. It is not puffed up. Does not rejoice over the unrighteous, but rejoices in truth. It covers all, believes all, expects all, endures all. Love never fails. And whether there be prophecies, there shall be inactive, or tongues there shall cease, or knowledge it shall be inactive. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be inactive. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child. I reasoned as a child. But when I became a man, I did away with childish matters. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then a face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know, as I also have been known. And now belief, expectation, and love remains. These three. What's the last part of that? Isn't that interesting that he said the greatest of these is love, and when Yahshua was asked what is the great command, what did he say? Interesting. Huh. How about that? So, is that the only place that we see Yahshua talking about love? No. Is that the only place that he talks about commands and love? No. All right, yeah, you're on it. Good job, babe. All right, so let's go check out John 13. That's going to be on page 1037. All right, we're going to be in verses 34 and 35. That's only two. I'm sorry, John 13, 34 and 35, page 1037. A renewed command I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my taught ones, if you have love for one another. That is the same word that we saw earlier in the Greek, agapo. So that's very interesting. Yahshua does that. So if love is that important, let me ask you a question. How much time do we spend learning about love? We get Yahshua saying that it's the great command. We get Paul saying that it is the greatest of all this stuff. And then we got Yahshua saying that by this you will know that you're one of my taught ones, is if you have love. But do we really become a student of love? Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I was younger, I thought I was pretty good at love. I even used to tout that I could teach courses on love because, I got this. That was all before I got married. Mark Twain said something one time along these lines. It says, it's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that just ain't so. So it turns out I was not qualified to be teaching classes whatsoever. But I walked around acting like I did. But there is a guy that has some seminars, he has some classes, and he also wrote this really cool book that is qualified to teach on love, and his name is Gary Chapman. And the book is called The 5 Love Languages. Now, if you haven't ever read it, I really suggest going and reading it. Gary goes around all over the U.S. We got to see him in Dalton, Georgia, of all places. And he comes to places. And any chance you get to go hear this guy speak, I highly suggest it, because it will change the way that you interact with not just your spouses, but with your children, with your friends, with all your family members. And it is that powerful. So I highly suggest it. So if you don't mind, I would like to give you a brief synopsis of what the 5 languages are. Y'all cool with that? Okay, thank you. All right, so Gary is one of the people that suggests that love is not a want, it is a need, okay? And the other thing that he goes on to suggest is just like the way that different people are able to digest food, the way that we're able to receive love is different. So, for instance, there are people that can survive and do very well and thrive on the keto diet. All right, does anybody know anybody like that? I know a few people that just live it, and that is, it is everything for them, and they're great with it. I tried it one time. And when I say one time, I was dedicated to it. I was on it for like 4 or 5 months, something along those lines. But at the end of the 4 or 5 months, my body started getting weird. All right, I had depleted all kinds of things on the inside of me. And I got really weird, like going to the doctor, having to get blood drawn, that kind of weird. Because my body's not designed to work with the way that you digest food that way. Okay? Some people are designed to be able to do things like the paleo diet. Some people are designed to do things like the South Beach diet. Matter of fact, Lucas, he apparently is on the Zaxby's diet because that boy eats that breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that works for him, so that's cool. I don't do well eating Zaxby's 5 times a day. So, in the same way, we have to figure out there are different ways that people digest love. And I'm using digest because when we talked about was love a need, it said a physiological requirement, all right? And food is a physiological requirement. And so what Dr. Chapman says is there's basically 5 different ways people give and receive love. And what I'm about to tell you is not in a specific order, it's just what they are. So acts of service is one of them. So people will go and they'll do things to show people they love them. All right? Spending quality time with somebody. That's a second one. Okay? So that's an important one. Words of affirmation, going around and telling people how good they are, lifting people up. That's a way to be able to do it. Number 4, gift giving. I love you. I want to show you this. Here's something. Number 5 is physical touch. And so that could be a hug, that could be a rub on the back, that could be a massage, it could be all kinds of different things. Okay? And so most of the time people have a dominant love language. There can be one in particular that is like, that's the one that makes them feel the most loved. Okay? And then the rest of them you may be able to enjoy in a certain way. Yes, Ariel?
That's my love language. It's touch and support.
You weren't supposed to tell everybody that. That's part of the message. So y'all will know that whenever we get there. So Ariel just said it, which, by the way, she just said that, and we've never taught her that that was her love language. Have you ever taught that to her? No, we've never taught this. So you are being very perceptive. Great job, Ariel. Yes, ma'am. All right. So here's some examples of love languages. So I didn't even know I did this whenever I first started writing this, but y'all remember what the very first part of the sermon was? I started talking about how great everybody was. I sat there and I said, give thanks to these people, give thanks to these people, give thanks to everybody, have a great time, all right? I didn't realize I was doing it, but I was lifting y'all up and giving you words of affirmation. And flat out, that is my primary love language. I sit there and I tell people how great they are all the time because I genuinely think people are good, and I want them to see that about themselves. And so, remember how I said whenever, I was young, I thought I could teach everybody about love. Until we got married, it wasn't because I wasn't trying to show Ashley that I loved her. It wasn't that I didn't think that we should go dating and things like that. Whenever we first got married, we had a long time before we had children. When I say a long time, we had 2 years. So it was she and I for 2 years. And we spent every waking moment with each other, that we weren't at work. Sometimes she was at work, and we were with each other all the time. Then when we had children, she was at home, I was out. And I was working, and I'd call her up and say, baby, you're great. Thank you for doing this. You're awesome. I hang up the phone. I keep working, and I call her back up and say, you're great. I love you. You're so awesome. And then I get home, you're beautiful. I love you. You're so wet, And then I go and I hit the bed. And when I hit the bed, Ashley started talking to me. What the? And this would go on for like 30 or 45 minutes. And I'm like, I'm telling the truth. And it was like, man. And so the way my sleep, I have a very interesting sleep cycle. If I don't go to sleep when I'm sleepy, I wake up for the next hour and a half, and then I can't go back to sleep. And so she would get me through my sleep cycle, and then I was starting to get grumpy because I wasn't getting enough sleep. So then she was getting grumpy. Can anybody figure out why she was getting grumpy? It wasn't listening. I was telling her I loved her, but I wasn't spending the time with her that she needed. See, before we had the children, she and I were together all the time. I didn't realize that her primary love language was quality time. I didn't realize that because it was just going together because I wasn't having to allocate things in the right places. And we were now stretched a little bit far because we had newborns, we had business, and I was calling her up and feeding her my love language, but that wasn't nourishing her. That wasn't giving her her physiological requirement. Does that make sense? Once I found that out, she and I were able to do some things that were easy. First and foremost is we would try to spend at least 30 minutes in the evening after we put the children down, just sitting there being with each other, talking about the day. And I didn't have to tell her how great she was while we were talking about the day. Now she may tell me about how great I was for doing the dishes, but I mean, like, literally. And so when she's doing that, she was loving on me, But by making that simple adjustment, all of a sudden, my wife is now feeling cherished. She's getting nourished in the way that she needs to be nourished. All right? So remember, I thought I was able to teach courses, but it really wasn't. All right? So that was quality time, and that was words of affirmation. So touch. I got a niece named Soraya. All right? Soraya is a touch baby. When I say she's a touch baby, ever since I can remember, she'd be sucked to you. It's like, and she'd sit there and she'd love on you and she'd pet on you. It's almost kind of a little weird because you get to walk up and you have to shake her off your leg. It wasn't that bad. But seriously, Soraya is dominant touch. And I mean, she will just love on you. And I can tell her how great she is all day, but it won't matter unless I give her a hug. Okay? Just out of curiosity, when y'all walked into the dining hall this morning by a show of hands, who all got a hug by Brother Stan? Okay, so Pop, you got to start hugging some dudes. Okay, did anybody get touched by Brother Stan? How about that? Did he give you a pat on the back? Did he shake your hand? Did he give you a hug? Anything? All right. Most of the time, Brother Stan is going to come up. How about this? Whenever you're getting ready to leave on Sabbath, he's going to make a beeline to you and almost tackle you to make sure he hugs you and tells you bye. And he's going to touch you or shake your hand or something, right? He's a touch. Okay? Ariel just yelled out loud. She's a touch. Ariel is such a touch baby that I can be loving on her and she loving on me, and she'll pick her hand up and pat me on the back just to make sure I understand it. I'm not kidding. So she is a dominant touch. Okay? Now, got another question. Who in here has received a gift from Meemaw at Tabernacles? How many of us have received a gift from Meemaw not at Tabernacles? How many has received something for their birthday? How many has received something just because she was walking by the rack at Walmart and that looked like it'd fit you, and so she did? Do I need to say more? All right, that's one of Meemaw's dominant ones. I'll tell you somebody else that's a gift giver. Fred is a gift giver. All right? Fred will go, most of the time at Tabernacles, y'all remember that time he made the plaques with the Yahweh and Yahshua on it? He just did it. He did it because he wanted to help everybody. He wanted to show people he loved them. He made monkey fists. The other day, we were sitting down at the little tiki torch thing, and he's over there making a bracelet for Eliana just because she said she liked purple and pink, and he just happened to have some purple and pink, so he made her a bracelet. That's gift giving. That when y'all see things like this, you need to recognize people are loving you. They are loving on you. All right? But something that's interesting about that is the love languages aren't as cut and dry as that. There's not just dominant, dominant, dominant. Sometimes they get confounded, because I'm going to tell you something. Meemaw will tell you that her primary love language, by the way, on the recording, if y'all don't know, Meemaw is Debbie. So Meemaw is what the grandbabies call her, and also what any of the children in the congregation call her. So that's who Meemaw is. Need to preface that. So Meemaw will give you a gift, but in Meemaw's mind, Meemaw's not gift giving. She feels like her primary is acts of service. Because what she saw was she saw a need that you had, and her service was to go get you something to fill that need. That's a little bit different way of thinking of it, isn't it? Is that true, Mom? That's exactly true. So her idea of acts of service may not be necessarily the same thing as somebody like Chris Willie, for instance. So Chris Willie is a primary source of somebody that is an acts of service. I'm going to tell you what, I put on Facebook the other day that, man, can anybody help me figure out what is going on with my printer? And Chris didn't even call me. He just showed up, fixed it, and left, and didn't even tell me about it. Most of the time when Chris sees something, he is going to go and try to fill that need, because what he's doing is he's showing you that he loves you. Just the way it is. Now, mixing it back up, Lucas is somebody that has two of them. Lucas is a gift giver as well. So Lucas will go give you a gift, and as he's giving you the gift, he's going to tell you about how awesome you are. But I'm telling you, he will put some serious thought into what kind of gifts he's going to give you. So, and he will go out of his way, almost to his hazard, to make sure you got something, because he's trying to show you that he loves you. And then he will tell you about how awesome you are. But you know what's funny? How awesome you is? You know what's funny though? He will tell you that his primary is touch, even though the way that it manifests in life is you will see him do one thing more than the other. So that's something that as you're thinking about what is your love language, you may want to take in inventory. Most of us possess all of those, but some of them come out stronger in other ways. And what's interesting is that even though that's the way you put it out there, you may not receive it in the same way. Great example is, I'm also an acts of service person. All right? I really enjoy helping people just for the sake of helping people. It is one of those things that it gives me great pleasure to help somebody out of a bind. I really like that. But what's odd about that is, and I think Chris and I share the same sentiment, is I don't want you to tell me about it once I did it. It makes me feel weird. What I would rather have is a quiet acknowledgement of the fact that I did it. So for instance, and I think this stems from what Yahshua talked about doing your good deeds to be seen by men. That's not why we do it. That's not why we do it. We do it because we love you. But I will feel weird if I go do something and then nobody even makes mention of it. I don't want to get told out in front of everybody, but like for instance, so I'll come home and I'll be like, man, Ashley's had a rough day. I'm going to do everything I can. I'll come in there and do dishes, take out the trash, I'm going to sweep, I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'll do some laundry, and I'll wash the car, and I'll take the dog for a walk, and everything I can. And then I'll come home, and I'll just sit there and I'll be quiet. And all I'm waiting for is, you did the dishes. I sure did. You walked the dog. Yeah, I did, didn't I? I didn't even have to get it. You're so great, put it on Facebook. Joey is so awesome. All I need is that little quiet acknowledgement. That gave me the word of affirmation that I needed. All right, so that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Because I'm going to tell you outwardly how great you are, but it makes me feel weird to be told greatly outwardly. All right? So here's another thing. So Ariel even just said she's a touch baby. Y'all know what else she is? All day long, she's words of affirmation. She's going to hug on you and tell you how beautiful you are and how great you are and how strong you are. And what I said a minute ago about how she'll sit there and love on you and then pat on you on the same time, I really believe that's what's going on, is she's giving you extra love. But just because Ariel's love language is touch doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to receive that love in the same way. So sometimes I think what happens is Ariel will go and she will touch somebody that maybe feels a little uncomfortable with that touch, and they don't respond. And so what she does is she touches harder because she wants you to know, I really love you. I'm serious. I think this is what's going on. And so what that comes across as is it comes across as her being a little aggressive, as opposed to, I'm just trying to show you I love you, because that's what she's trying to do. Now, touch does not come natural to Ashley. Okay? That's not something that she necessarily enjoys. Is there anybody else in here that touch doesn't necessarily come natural? Julie, put her in, Salem. Okay, that's totally okay. And so sometimes when people invade your space and they sit there, even if they're close to you and they invade your space, because it makes you uncomfortable. So the reason why I bring that up is because just because it's the way that you receive love doesn't mean that it's the way that your loved ones can digest love. Okay, and that is very important. Ashley is okay with receiving touch from me. However, sometimes she has to think about remembering to reciprocate that, because I enjoy touch. But there are other times when she's like, man, that person's touching me too much. And she will tell me about it, and it is what it is. So Julie's sitting over there going, yeah, I understand now. So it is a thing. So as you are now armed with this knowledge that there are different types of love, you've got to remember, the important thing is, I want to show the person that I love them, right? Just because it's the way that I like to be loved doesn't necessarily mean it's the way they like to be loved. And if you can learn to be able to spot the different types of way people like to be loved and give it to them, by the way, Candace, you're awesome. How about that? She lit up. Did y'all see that? She's an acts of service person. She really is. She's an acts of service and a words of affirmation person. Those are her two dominants. All right? And it's okay to have multiple dominants. I haven't met anybody that I know of that's all 5 of them all together, but I have seen people that are very strong in 2 or 3 of them. And you have a hard time discerning which one is which. But once that you see that, you can do little things to be able, if you've got a touch person, give Poppy a hug. If you don't feel like comfortable, give him a hug, give him a handshake. That gets there. Poppy likes to come up and put his cheek on other people's cheeks, If you're not comfortable with that, give him a handshake. That's that touch on touch. That's important. Okay? So knowing that, you can now go and do what you need to do. So we'll just leave it at that. All right? I've done got off my notes because I was just ad-libbing a little bit. Let me get back to them, please. There are some languages occur to others. Okay, so what I didn't say about it, and I said it just a little bit, but I didn't harp on it. There are some people, it does not occur to them to do the languages that occur to other people. So, for instance, what Ashley does about touch, it's not because she doesn't want to touch me. It's not because she doesn't love me. It's not because it just flat out doesn't occur to her to do it. I know some people that if you ask them to go do something, they will go do it, but they don't. Acts of service is not something that occurs to them. If you tell somebody they're great, or you say, hey, you probably ought to go tell them how good a job they did, they will go and do it, but for whatever reason, that's not their primary, so it just simply does not occur to them. And so if you have a loved one that your primary is not being fed, it's not because they don't love you, more than likely. More than likely is that it simply does not occur to them. And if you will go to them and let them know, hey, this is how I need to receive love. More than likely, Ashley works on it daily trying to make sure that she touches me enough. She got real good at telling me how great I am. I love that. So, but the touch thing is something that she works on regularly. And so if you have that in your relationships, you may want to work on that just a little bit to be able to get better. I love all the smiles and stuff. This is good. Baseball bat. That's a touch, isn't it? Understand. So his is not touch whatsoever. Understand. All right. All right, I said Ashley doesn't. So that was a good point, that just because the touch does not occur to somebody doesn't mean they didn't want to do it, but also do remember that if you are insisting on your love language on other people, there's a high likelihood you can make them uncomfortable and in turn make them feel unloved. Okay, so just be careful with that. Find out, it is not hard to see most of the time the way people would like to be loved. Just stand back and watch and see what they do. What do they do to other people? And that is more than likely the way that they would like to be fed. Okay? So, let's go back and reread the Great Command. Let's go back over to Matthew. Wait a minute, did I get off? Oh, let's go back to Matthew 22:36 through 40. That's back on page 944. By the way, I didn't mention it because I don't see him right now. I'm having a hard time figuring out what Seth's is. I think it's quality time, but I'm still not sure. He will want to spend special time. He will want to tell you that you've done a really good job. And he enjoys getting stuff for people. He enjoys getting stuff as well. But I still haven't seen one of them go out and be the dominant. So if you have children and you're trying to figure it out, they haven't fully developed yet. I mean, she sticks out, I know what it is. His is a little bit more difficult for me to figure out. But still, when I'm spending time with him, he enjoys it. He sit there and thank me for taking him fishing yesterday. And we got to catch fish, and that was cool. But it was very important for him to get to feel that Daddy was with him, And I think all kids need that. But I mean, in the context of what's the love language, that was important. I already tell him he's great because that's just what comes natural to me. But I have to think about buying stuff because I'm not a possession type person. I don't think to get gifts per se. And it's real hard. Is it hard? Is it easy to buy a gift for me, Mom? Ashley, is it easy to buy a gift for me? How come? I'm not a stuff person. I just... And it's not because I don't like it. I'm just like... I'm legitimately trying to figure out what made you think that I need a new watch. I love it. It's cool. What made you think that? Because I'm curious. I don't understand. And so it's just one of those things that one's not part of me. But I will. But what's odd is I will think to get stuff for other people. Anyway, so Matthew 22:36 through 40. Teacher, which is the great command in Torah? And Yeshua said to him, you shall love Yahweh. You shall love Yahweh. You shall love Yahweh with Yahweh, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind. This is the first and great command. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I'm trying to put emphasis on that. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the prophet. All right, so we've been talking about love this whole time, but I think we've been focusing mostly on the second part of the great command because we've been talking about how to love our neighbor. But have y'all ever considered the idea that maybe those love languages pertain to Yahweh as well? Because remember, that's the great one. To breathe after him, to dote on him. How can we do that? So I want to go over the love languages one more time. And remember, they're not in this order. It's just the way I've got them listed because that's what popped out of my head. Acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, gift giving, and touch. Okay, so let's start with quality time. Can anybody think that spending quality time with Yahweh is a good idea? All right, would that be a good way to show him love? Can y'all think of any instances when somebody was spending time with Yahweh and then Yahweh did something great? I think of a pretty miraculous one. It's over in Daniel. Moshe's a cool one. Let's go to Daniel, though. I want to check Daniel out. Let's go to Daniel 6. We're going to read about Daniel in the lion's den. This will be on page 590, by the way. Or if you're using iOS, it's going to be on Daniel 6:1. or Android, I'm sorry. All right, we're Daniel 6:1, and we're going to read pretty much the whole chapter. It pleased Darius to appoint over the reign 120 viceroys to be over all the reign, and over them 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, so that these viceroys should give account to them, and the sovereign suffer no loss. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and viceroys because an excellent spirit was in him. What do y'all think that spirit was? Spirit of Elohim. And the sovereign planned to appoint him over all the reign. Now that didn't go so, that started making people be a little envious, I think is a good word. Then the governors and the viceroys sought to find an occasion against Daniel concerning the reign, but they were unable to find occasion or corruption, because he was steadfast, and no negligence or corruption was found in him. Then these men said, well, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, unless we find it against him concerning the law of his Allah. Then these governors and viceroys tumultuously gathered before the sovereign, and said to him, Sovereign Darius, live forever. All the governors of the reign, the nobles and viceroys, the counselors and the advisors, have consulted together to establish a royal decree and to make a strong interdict that whoever petitions any Allah or man for 30 days except you, O sovereign, is going to be thrown into the lion's den. I think the sovereign thought, man, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty stout. I like that. Apparently he had an ego. He was probably a words of affirmation guy. Yeah, serves him right. I can't be talking to nobody. You got to spend some quality time with me. I'm not sure what was going on there. I lost my place. Where was that? 8. Now, O sovereign, establish this interdict and sign the writing, so that it is not to be changed, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which does not pass away. So sovereign Darius signed the written interdict. And Daniel, when he knew that the writing was signed, went home in his upper room with his windows open towards Jerusalem. He knelt down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his Allah as he had done before. Now what's he doing? He's spending quality time with Yahweh. How much quality time is he spending with him? Just like we eat, right? That's interesting. All right, so he's seeing like this as a physiological requirement for an organism's well-being. Can y'all agree with that? Now, it doesn't sound like it's about to be for his well-being, but let's see what happens. Then these men tumultuously gathered and found Daniel praying and entreating before his Allah. Then they approached the sovereign and spoke concerning the sovereign's interdict. Have you not signed an interdict that every man who petitions any Allah or man within 30 days except you, O sovereign, is thrown into the den of lions? The sovereign answered and said, the word is certain, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which does not pass away. Then they answered and said before the sovereign, Daniel, who is one of the sons of the exile from Yehuda, pays no heed to you, O sovereign, nor for the interdict that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the sovereign, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased with himself. See, he liked Daniel. He really did. And he set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men tumultuously gathered before the sovereign. Just as a side note, I always thought this was interesting. They thought they could trip up the sovereign, and they forgot the sovereign could say, off with his head, just like that, for no reason whatsoever. They weren't taking good charge of their life. Anyway, then the sovereign gave orders, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the den of lions. But the sovereign spoke and said to Daniel, Your Allah, whom you serve continually, he himself delivers you. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den. And the sovereign sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his great men. And the situation concerning Daniel might not be changed. And the sovereign went to his palace, and spent the night fasting. He really did like Daniel. And no entertainment was brought to him before him, and his sleep fled from him. Then the sovereign rose up early in the morning and hurried to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he called with a grieved voice to Daniel. The sovereign spoke and said, Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living Allah, has your Allah, whom you continually serve, been able to deliver you from the lions? I wonder how long the pause was in between that. Because he was down there sleeping like a baby, probably. Then Daniel said to the sovereign, O sovereign, live forever. I bet he's going, my Allah has sent his messenger and has shut the lion's mouth, and they did not harm me, because I was found innocent before him, and also before you, O sovereign. I have done no harm. Then the sovereign was very glad and gave orders that Daniel be taken up out of the den. And Daniel was taken up from the den, and no harm was found on him, because he trusted in his Allah. So there's for instance, where something very miraculous happened. Yahweh did something great because somebody had spent the time with him building that relationship, such that when he prayed, Yahweh, please save my life, I'm about to get eaten, that he was there in a heartbeat. He showed his Allah, he showed his Elohim, he showed Yahweh love by quality time. Now, is Daniel the only person who done this? No. Let's go and look at something that Yahshua, who happened to do miraculous things, was in the habit of. Let's go and look at something that I believe Matt read yesterday. Let's go to Matthew 14:23. We're just going to read one verse because Matt read it yesterday. That's going to be on page 934. All right, 934, we're going to be in Matthew 14:23. So Yahshua just got through feeding everybody, he got through healing everybody, and having dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. What was he doing up there? Spending quality time. And when evening had come, he was alone there. So it was just him and Yahweh by themselves, spending quality time. And what happened next? He said, I see my boys out there. I think I'm going to go walk to them. And he went out there walking on the water, and we know that whole story. So that was something very interesting. That's not the only instance that we have that, because by two or more witnesses you confirm a matter. So let's go to page 986 and look at Luke 12. All right, we're going to, once again, just read one verse. It's going to be on Luke 6:12. I said Luke 12, didn't I? I apologize for that. It's Luke 6:12, page 986. And in those days it came to be that he went out to the mountain to pray, and was spending the night in prayer in Elohim. That's date night, yo. He spent all night up there praying with Yahweh. He was having that quality time that apparently Yahweh appreciates. Because most of the time whenever people get over there and they spend a long time with them, miraculous things happen. Matt brought up Moshe. Moshe spent 40 days with him. When he came down, his face shone. We got this really cool picture where Seth's up at Rocktown and the light is hitting him just right so that you can't see anything but bright white right there. You can see his body, but I mean, it's like, we showed that to Seth and said, I wonder if that's what Moshe looked like whenever his face shone. So that'd be a cool thing. All right, so that is spending time with Yahweh. And those are a couple of for instances. So we got Moshe doing it, we got Yeshua doing it, we got Daniel doing it. You can find lots of them in there. Spending that quality time with Yahweh is very important. But I'm just curious, what do y'all think about words of affirmation? Does Yahweh enjoy being told how great he is? Candace already said something. What'd you say? He's worthy of praise, isn't he? Who was really good at telling Yahweh how good he was? David. Let's go over to the Psalms. We're going to read a few different ones, so we'll be bouncing just a little bit. Let's go to page 650. We're going to read Psalms 9. We're going to read 9, 1 through 14. (9:1) I praise you, O Yahweh, with all my heart. What does that sound like? Almost sounds like Matthew just a little bit. So we can take the word, I love you with all my heart, and praise you with all my heart, because praising is a type of love. We just didn't know that before. I praise you, O Yahweh, with all my heart. I declare all your wonders. I rejoice and exult in you. I sing praise to your name, O Most High. When your enemies turn back, they stumble and perish before you. He is saying some really good things. Words of affirmation. For you executed my right and my cause. You sat on the throne judging in righteousness. You have rebuked the Gentiles. You have destroyed the wrong. You have wiped out their name forever and ever. The enemy is no more, ruins everlasting, and you have uprooted the cities. Even their remembrance has perished. But Yahweh abides forever. He is preparing his throne for judgment, and he judges the world in righteousness. He judges the people in straightness. And Yahweh, he's a refuge for the crushed one, a refuge in time of distress. And those who know your name trust in you. For you have not forsaken those who seek you, O Yahweh. Sing praises to Yahweh who dwells in Zion. Declare his deeds among the peoples. For he remembers the seekers of bloodshed. He does not forget the cry of the afflicted. Show favor to me, O Yahweh. See my affliction by those who hate me. You who lift me up from the gates of death, so that I declare all your praises in the gates of the daughter of Zion. I rejoice in your deliverance. There was a whole lot of telling Yahweh he was good right there. Let's go on to chapter 30. That's going to be on page 660. We're going to read 1 through 4. I exalt you, O Yahweh, for you have drawn me up, and have not let your enemies rejoice over me. Yahweh, my Elohim, I have cried to you, and you have healed me. Yahweh, you brought me up from the grave. You have kept me alive from going down into the pit. Sing praise to Yahweh, you kind ones of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his set-apartness. Let's go to 34. That's 663. I bless Yahweh at all times. His praise is continually in my mouth. By the way, just out of curiosity, y'all think do you see how we might be able to show David we loved him? Might be able to walk in there and tell him how good he is. Just curious. My being makes its boast in Yahweh. Let the humble hear and be glad. Oh, make Yahweh great with me, and let us exalt his name together. Let's flip over to 89. It's page 695. I sing of the kindness of Yahweh forever. With my mouth I make known your trustworthiness to all generations. For I say, kindness is built up forever. You establish your trustworthiness in the heavens. You said, I have made a covenant with my chosen. I have sworn to my servant David. I establish your seed forever and shall build up your throne to all generations. Salah. Here's a for instance of Yahweh giving David some words of affirmation because he called him his chosen. How would that feel? Yahweh looked down at you. You're my chosen. I can think of a couple times where he calls you your treasure, calls you his treasured possession. Seems like somebody did write a message about that. About a year old. I lost my place, y'all. I'm sorry. 4. I establish your seed forever and shall build up your throne to all generations. Salah. And the heavens praise your wonders, O Yahweh, your trustworthiness too, in the assembly of the set-apart ones. For who in the heavens is comparable to Yahweh? Who among the sons of the mighty is like Yahweh? El is greatly feared in the company of the set-apart ones, and awesome above all those around him. He just called Yahweh awesome and told him how great he was. I mean, this just keeps going. O Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, I read that one already. You rule the swelling of the seas. When its waves rise, you still them. You have broken Rahab into pieces as one who is slain. You have scattered your enemies with the arm of your strength. The heavens are yours. The earth also is yours. The world and all that fills it. You have founded them, north and south. You have created them, Tabar and Hamon. Rejoice in your name. You have a mighty arm. Your hand is strong. Your right hand exalted. Righteousness and right ruling are the foundation of your throne. Kindness and truth go before your face. Blessed are the people who know the festival trumpet call. They walk, O Yahweh, in the light of your face. In your name they rejoice all day long, and they are exalted in righteousness. For you are the comeliness of their strength, and by your good pleasure our horn is exalted. For Yahweh is our shield, and the set apart one of Israel is our sovereign. So there's David doing it. Do we know anybody else that might have given Yahweh some, words of affirmation? I got it, for instance, that Yahweh did it to himself. Chris read about this in his. So let's go look at Exodus 34. By the way, I was just searching the things, and it was interesting that these had already been covered by a couple of different people. So this is going to be on Exodus 34. We're going to be on page 94. And this is where Yahweh is going to go and proclaim the name Yahweh. 34:5. And Yahweh came down in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name Yahweh. And Yahweh passed before him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh, and El compassionate and showing favors. This is uplifting words. Patient and great in kindness and truth. He didn't say small, and he didn't say he's all right in compassion and truth. He said great in kindness and truth. Watching over kindness for thousands. Forgiving the crookedness and transgressions and sin, but by no means leaving unpunished. Visited the crookedness of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. All right? Another one that you may not have thought of before that is a words of affirmation is over in the Master's Prayer. Let's turn over to Matthew 6. Most of us do this instinctually. Either that or we've been taught to do this. But when we pray, what is the first thing that we do most of the time? We give Yahweh a verbal pat on the back. We tell him that let your name be set apart, something along those lines. We give him a verbal pat on the back. We show him love with our words. Matthew 6, 9 through 13. This then is the way you should pray. Our Father who is in the heavens, let your name be set apart. Let your reign come. Let your desire be done on earth as it is in heaven. He's going ahead and submitting himself to him and telling him, hey, you are great. You are set apart. I love you. That's Yahshua doing that. Give us today our daily bread and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into trial, but deliver us from the wicked one. Because yours is the reign and the power and esteem forever. Amen. All right, so we got words of affirmation. We got quality time. What about gifts? That one's pretty easy, isn't it? Yeah. You think of what? Offerings. That is probably the first place your brain goes to when you think of giving gifts to Yahweh, right? All right. I went there, but then I thought of something totally different. Actually, I found something totally different. So remember how I said whenever you've got your 5 love languages, the way people interact with you is probably the way that they would like to receive love back, right? I've got it, for instance, where Yahweh gave somebody a gift. Actually, he gave all of us a gift, as a matter of fact. Let's go to Numbers 18. All right, Numbers 18:6. That's on page 161. And see, this is Yahweh talking to Aharon. And see, I myself have taken your brothers, the Levites, from the midst of the children of Israel, a gift to you, given by Yahweh to do service of the tent of meeting. There's Yahweh giving a gift to the people. He gave it to Aharon, but the reason that whole thing was established was to take care of us, was it not? There's Yahweh giving us love through gifts. And we know about the offerings, but there's something else that happens at this time of year. Let's go to Deuteronomy 16. It's going to be on page 203. Deuteronomy 16:16 and 17. 3 times a year all your males appear before Yahweh your Elohim, in the place which he chooses, at the festival of unleavened bread, and at the festival of weeks, and at the festival of booths. And none should appear before Yahweh empty, but each one with the gift of his hand, according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you. There's a command right there where Yahweh's saying, when you come, you're going to bring me a gift. Wouldn't it just be so much easier if people just said, hey, I need to be loved like this, do this? Well, he does that a lot of times. I mean, he does that a lot of times. And I'm still not sure, no, I'm pretty sure I know what his primary is. It's not touch. All right, the only time that I can think of that even comes close to touch is when Moshe gets covered up with the hand of Yahweh as he passes over right before he proclaims the name Yahweh. But I can't find anywhere where somebody is just sitting there touching Yahweh. All right, so that's probably not his one. He's just like Julie. But what about acts of service? I really think that that's going to be one of Yahweh's primary ones, because what is the main thing he asks of us? What is that? It's doing something. It's doing something. He shows kindness to those that love him and do what? By guarding his commands, what are we doing? We're showing him we love him. I think that's Yahweh's primary love language. Have you ever thought about it like that? Let's look at some scripture. Let's go to page 191. That's going to be Deuteronomy 5. What's interesting is that he starts out with the first covenant that he's making with Israel, talking about this kind of stuff. Deuteronomy 5, 1 through 10. And Moshe called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the laws and the right rulings which I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and guard to do them. Yahweh our Elohim made a covenant with us at Horeb. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. Yahweh spoke with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. I stood between Yahweh and you at that time to declare to you the word of Yahweh. For you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up the mountain, saying, I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. As a side note right there, that was something I forgot to put in the last one. It's in this one, I'm sorry. What is one of the things that Yahweh reverts back to of something he did for us? Right there. He brings that up over and over. I did something for y'all. I just want y'all to remember that. I did this. And that's a big deal that he's saying, here's an act of service I did for you. Going on. He brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image. This whole thing right here sounds like, I want you to make sure you remember you love me. You love me. You don't love any of those other things. This is me. Okay? So you don't make any other mighty ones. You don't have any other lovers. You're me. And I don't even want you to have any kind of carved image. You have me. You do not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of which is in the heavens above, or which is in the earth beneath, or which is in the waters underneath. You do not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, your Elohim, I'm a jealous El. When do we think about jealousy most of the time? What kind of relationship is that? It's a love type relationship, yes? Interesting. Visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. What's hate the opposite of? But showing kindness to the thousands to those who what? Say it together. Who what? Love me and guard my commands. Yahweh's an acts of service. Deuteronomy 6, we're going to read the Shema real quick. Flip the page over. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh is one, and you shall what? Love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your might. By the way, that's that same love word right there. And these words which I command to you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children. Why would we be impressing the commands into our children? Because we want our children to serve him. And shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. This is stuff that you're doing that is serving him, isn't it? These are acts of service. And it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give you great and good cities which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees. No, I missed my spot. 12. Be on guard lest you forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. So he's reminding you, fear Yahweh your Elohim and serve him, and swear by his name. Do not go after other mighty ones, the mighty ones of the people who are all around you, for Yahweh your Elohim is a jealous El in your midst. Lest the displeasure of Yahweh your Elohim burn against you. Then he shall destroy you from the face of the earth. Do not try your Elohim as you tried him in Massah. Diligently guard the commands of Yahweh and his witness and his laws which he has commanded you. Once again, serving him. And you shall do what is right and good in your eyes, in the eyes of Yahweh, that it might be well with you. And you shall go in and possess the good land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to drive out all your enemies from before you, as Yahweh has spoken. When your sons ask you in time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the witness and the laws and the right rulings which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you? And he said, I want your sons to remember about that time I did something good for you, when you were slaves of Pharaoh in Mitzrayim, and I brought you out, and I did it with a strong hand. Just want y'all to know that. And Yahweh sent signs and wonders and great and grievous upon Mitzrayim. I really went after them. I wanted y'all to really know just how much I love you. And this is what I did for you. To give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. What did he do? He gave us something. So we got acts of service and gift giving. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh. And why are we doing it? Because it's for our good always, to keep us alive as it is today. Yahweh does acts of service for us, and we can see that. I got one more that we're going to read. It's over on Leviticus 26. It's going to be on page 113. This is where Yahweh does acts of service for us in addition to Mitzrayim. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it like this before, but this is a different perspective. We're going to be at 26:3 and read through 13. Yahweh says, if you walk in my laws and guard my commands and shall do them, I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to give you rain in its season, and the land shall yield its crops, and the trees of the field their fruit. And your threshing shall last till the time of the grape harvest, and the grape harvest shall last till the time of the sowing. And you shall eat your bread until you have enough, and shall dwell in your land safely. And I shall give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and no one make you afraid. And I shall clear the land of evil beasts, and not let the sword go through your land. And you shall pursue your enemies, and they shall fall by the sword before you. And 5 of you shall pursue 100, and 100 of you pursue 10,000. And your enemies shall fall by the sword before you. And I shall turn to you, and make you bear fruit, and shall increase you, and shall establish my covenant with you. Can y'all see how this is acts of service? Matter of fact, all of the blessings are acts of service. But it has to do with him reciprocating you giving him acts of service. And you shall eat the old supply and clear out the old because of the new. And I shall set my dwelling place in your midst, and my being shall not reject you. And I shall walk in your midst and shall be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, from being their slaves. And I have broken the bars of your yokes and make you walk upright. Let's go back to Matthew 22 one more time, just to remember how important love is, because it is the great command. I'll read it. Y'all don't have to turn there. We've already read it 3 times. Teacher, which is the great command? And Yeshua said, you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your mind. This is the great command. This is the great command. How are y'all doing that? Think about it. Think about what you can do to show the people that you love and the Elohim that you love the type of love that he can digest and the type of love that they can digest. Evaluate yourself. How are you showing other people love? Another thing to think about is if you're withholding something that you would normally do, that might mean that you're withholding the love that you may have towards somebody. And there may be an issue there that you want to get rid of, or go talk to, or get it resolved. But with the 5 love languages, you can really evaluate and really improve the way that you interact with people, your neighbor, and also your Elohim. And that's the great command. Yivrekeka Yahweh vayishmereka, Ya'ir Yahweh panav alecha v'kineka, Yisai Yahweh panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom.